Well, so far we've been storing the animated parameters. What we can do is start to look at the storing of the current values. If I select this cube, we can see here are the current values on this particular frame. If I were to store the marked parameters, absolutely nothing happens because down here there are no parameters stored. So I'm going to click on Translate, and they're now marked. So store, mark parameter, current values. Because there is no animation, it just does a default 1 to 5 frames. And we'll just call this offset or something like that. And currently it's at frame 39. Makes no real difference. It's going to go OK. So now if I insert the source, offset, notice here we go, it will just jump to that value there. This is extremely useful for things like setting a reference pose for your character, like a T-pose, or for facial setup to set it back as a neutral pose. But because it's just, if I go into the source, it's just a value, there we go, I can actually go in here and change the value like so. That was a warning that I was just changing a value. There. So, why isn't it updating? Currently I have this instantiated onto the mixer. It's an instance of the source. If I delete it and reload it, because I've changed the original source data, I hadn't changed the instance of it on the clip, on the mixer. So now, boom, there we go. So just beware of that. When you start to make adjustments to the source data, unless it's function curves, you won't see it until you re-instantiate it. So I can also stretch this out, and now I'm mixing a offset value here, which was the 529, against the F-curve value here, and again we can change the influence like so. Using the standard store marked parameters, current values or transformations, as I say, is a very good way to control a specific setting. So if you also just want to take a snapshot of the current values, you don't have to keep these, of course. At any time you can go back into the mixer and just delete these animations. So you'll notice that you have a little plus when it's F-curves, and when there's no F-curves, it's just a static value, you get them in here. If I were to store the transformation's current values, it's actually going to store, we'll just call this SRT. Because inside here now, it's stored it for all the scaling, rotation and translation or position values. If I were to get another object and parent this to my cube, it inherits the values because it's a child. If I were to take a store transformation current values and just call it together, and now inside here you can see we have both the cube and the sphere. So I branch selected and stored it like so. So whenever you store, it will actually take the current selection as the input. So if I were to select just the sphere, store that and call it sphere, sphere only, we can now click on this and there it is just the sphere values. This is important to understand because it's a way in which you can strip the information from particular parts of your character or your setup. If I were to do some keyframes, I can specify not only the input which I want to store, but whether or not I want to do it from a selected bunch of objects or the entire hierarchy. And one final thing, if we have a look at the source animation, if I were to remove all the clips from the mixer, I have no animation. If I want to get back the original F-curves on the object without going via the mixer, I can simply select, say, my up animation and reapply the action. So now if I select this, look under the kinematic local transforms, there we go, the animation is back on. Apply action works with the source animation. If I've done a very complicated mix and blend across multiple tracks, multiple clips, you might have to plot the animation to create a new source to apply that back as normal F-curves.